connect. If you want to have a one-on-one conversation, if you feel like you have a unique situation, I would love to have that one-off conversation. My office is just right down the hall from Miss Rella's, so let me know. We can certainly set that up. Let me also mention too that we're talking about today the option of starting a graduate program while you're still an undergraduate student. And specifically, we're talking about doing that with two of the programs we have at UNC Charlotte. That is our Data Science and Business Analytics program. We call that DSBA. And then our Health Informatics and Analytics, sort of the sister program to DSBA. There are plenty of graduate programs. And if you're thinking that you might be interested in a graduate program, but not specifically data science, maybe you want to move more to the business side and think about an MBA, or maybe you want to go more to the technical side and think about a computer science degree. Those are all options. And I can definitely point you to the right person. But today we're specifically talking about the Masters in Data Science and Health Informatics. And so what is early entry? Let's start there. This is an option for students who are currently pursuing their undergraduate degree to essentially jumpstart into a graduate program. You can apply and be admitted as a junior-ish to start taking graduate courses as a senior. And during that senior year, you would be taking a combination of graduate courses along with undergraduate courses that double count. And so while you're saving time, you're taking the graduate version of something that counts towards your undergrad degree. You're also saving a good chunk of money because you are not paying the graduate rate, which is a much higher rate. And so you can double count 4 classes. Our master's program is 11 courses total. So if you started as early entry, you would have roughly 1 additional year to complete the program. But that's a good chunk of money that you're saving by not paying that graduate rate on. And then additionally, you're saving that time. So what is needed to apply? Credit hours is important. So when we talk about things like class standing, sophomore standing, junior standing, that's all based on credit hours. You need 75 earned credit hours to apply. That means to start your application. And that is basically being a second semester junior. To be admitted when you have 90 earned hours, which gives you senior standing. So the idea is you would apply the semester ahead of when you plan to begin, and you can be early entry for 2 semesters, essentially your senior year. And it's the same application that all prospective graduate students fill out. So on our program's website, you'll see a big green button that says Apply Now. You click that, and it takes you to the graduate school's admissions portal. You make a login and submit all your materials through that site. So it's the same application that everyone fills out. There's one part that asks, are you early entry? So for you all, of course, you would check yes. That prompts some things on the back end, some paperwork and other things we do to make sure that you're billed correctly and that your courses are double counted. But otherwise, it's the same complete application. And I can talk about what all that entails. In addition to the credit hours, GPA is important. And so we require a minimum 3.2 GPA. And that's because we're asking you to take on graduate work in addition to an already full load of what you're doing at the undergraduate level. And so we want to make sure that we're setting you up to be successful. That's, I think, the basis of that requirement. I can talk about all the materials that are necessary to apply, but one of the factors that I think often deters students is some of the standardized testing. So the benefit for you all as early entry is that we would waive that GRE requirement. This is going to be really easy for you all as data science undergrads. I have a list, and I will share that with you momentarily of what our graduate courses equal on the undergraduate side. We've already gone through and determined what they're equivalent to. Students in other majors, we often have to connect with those undergrad advisors and have faculty look at the course syllabi to figure out how it's going to count on the undergrad side. But for you all, we know this major, and we know how things are already going to count. So in that regard, that it's easier because we've already sorted that out. What needs to happen after you're admitted is you'll submit an academic petition, and that is how you formally document what you're double counting. And for anyone who is thinking about or will be going through this process, I will help you every step of the way. So I'll remind you that it's time to do this petition, and I'll help you get it submitted. But just remember that that's something you have to do every term to indicate I'm taking this graduate course and it should count as this on the undergraduate side. That will update things like your degree works, your audit, and make sure that everything is cleared. Typically, the graduate school also puts an early entry hold on your account after you get admitted because they want to force you to meet with your advisor. So again, we'll connect after you get through the admissions process. I'll take that hold off and advise you as to what classes I think you should be signing up for. If there's any special permissions needed at that time, I'll also make sure you have those in place. So like I mentioned, we've already gone through and evaluated what a lot of our coursework counts for at the undergraduate level. You'll see several business courses up here. There's several computer science. The two highlighted in green are two that you would certainly include in your four that you're double counting because you're required to take the ITCS 3160, which is the database course, and 3162 data mining as part of your degree. So instead, you would take the graduate version, which is DSBA 6160 and DSBA 6162. So what's important to note now, I think, is if this is something you're planning on, work with Miss Rella to make sure it's not going to mess anything up, but don't take those courses at the undergrad level, the 3160 and 3162. Wait and take those when you're admitted, and you'll take the graduate version instead. There are a couple other options that I can suggest for the other two. They would count as general electives. So what that means is they count toward your 120 total. They don't fulfill a required class. For example, there's nothing you can take on the graduate side to sub out Studio 4, right? Like you have to take Studio 4. But there are other courses that make sense to be taken. Those include the 6201. This is business intelligence. Visual analytics is a really good course, 5122. So I can kind of take a look at what you've already taken and what makes the most sense for you, but I'll give you suggestions to give you 4 total. Also, depending on if you have other majors, if you're a double major, or if you have a minor, we can look at what might be required there. I think the beauty of early entry is that we can be really individualized. So if you have a minor in something in CCI, maybe AI or software information systems, we can take a look at what's required for that and try to find something on the grad side that you could take in place. We'll try to make it as beneficial for you as we can. So let me pause there and see what questions do you all have. Pull up at the same time our website, because I think that does a really good job of summarizing the things we've talked about. It's the same on the health informatics side, so I'm just going to pull up the DSBA page, but just know that it's the same. Under the admissions tab, you'll see early entry as a drop-down option, and everything we talked about essentially is here, including the admissions requirements, the form, which is the early entry petition, the timeline, and then these approved courses. Yes, you can. Good question, Jason. You can find the courses in the catalog. I will show you where that is on the DSBA page. And let me also say 2 things about that. One, the catalog, as you all know, is important because that holds all the requirements, right? And you are essentially locked into the catalog you start with. So you can get to the DSBA's section of the catalog from our website, and you can see all their degree requirements and the courses. I also think if you're wanting to get a better sense of what you're going to learn in these courses, the catalog does not tell you that much, right? It's usually a quick summary. And so if you go back to the website, under this curriculum drop-down screen, you'll see syllabi. And I reference this a lot with prospective students because I think it really gives you a better sense of what to expect. What am I going to be learning? How is the course structured? Is it project-based? Is it test-based? What are the reading materials? And so giving the syllabi a quick scan, even if you're just comparing the different sections of the same course, it gives you a good idea of what to prepare for. And yes, the 12 hours you take at the master's level are all counted towards your 120 total. So some, as I mentioned, have a direct equivalency. Instead of taking 3160, you would take 6160. That counts in place of it. There are others that you would take that are required at the graduate level that count as just general electives towards the undergrad side. But again, all still counting towards your 120. The things I think are important for you to keep in mind in terms of the application process. One, statement of purpose. So that's really important. We want to hear from you specifically about your goals and your future plans. Why are you interested in this program? And we want to make sure that you're going to be a good fit for us just as much as we're a good fit for you, right? So it does us no good to bring in a bunch of students just to fill seats if they're not going to be successful and move through the program. We want to make sure that we're going to help get you to where it is you want to go. So you can be thinking early about what are your goals and how to articulate that clearly. You can also be thinking about folks you might ask to be recommenders. So you'll need 3. And as current students, it's not required that they be faculty, but I think in your case, it makes sense that you ask folks you've had in the classroom. You could also think about asking if you've had an on-campus job, maybe a supervisor, or if you have work experience, but some of them should be academic. Be thinking about the classes you've been really engaged in and who you might ask. I know Deanna and I get asked a lot to be recommenders, and to be honest, it's a challenge if we don't really know you, right? So make sure you're being active, sitting close to the front, having your phone put away, asking engaging questions, coming prepared. That's the kind of thing that a recommender is going to remember and be able to speak to when asked about you. So again, nothing that needs like today action, but just things to be thinking about. I think those are the 2 most important. Again, the credit hours and the GPA are firm policy. Those are hard and fast graduate school rules. The other things are things that our committee looks at their discretion. So being able to really show us who you are and why you're going to be a good fit for this program is really important. Is it possible to do more than 12 credits? Okay, that's a great question. Yes, it is. They will let you, so you can only double count 12 hours, which is 4 classes. However, the graduate school will let you take a 5th course, only counting towards the graduate side. So you cannot double count that 5th course. It would not count towards your 120 hours, but it would be 1 additional class you can take to knock out and pay the undergraduate rate on. So something we haven't talked a lot about, and I want to always be really transparent. Graduate tuition is expensive. It's a big investment of your time and your money. So there is that cost incentive to get that 5th course in while you're still completing your undergrad. To be honest, I would really want to look at your record and see what all you still have to take. If you've got 3 and 4 classes on the undergrad side already that you have to do, plus the 1 or 2 graduate courses you're double counting, I would not advise that. I just talked to a student yesterday who just needs Studio 4 to finish the undergrad degree. And so they're doing the 2 other classes, 2 other graduate courses that they're double counting. And they're thinking about adding that 5th course that would only count towards the graduate side. That's a scenario that it makes more sense in. Keep in mind, too, the workload. At the graduate level, 3 classes is considered full-time. Whereas at the undergrad level, you all are taking 12 to 15 hours, right, every semester. 9 is full-time for graduate students. And so it's just a heavier workload. And so I would not want to see you all in 9 hours, which is complete full-time status for us, plus another maybe 9 at the undergrad side. That's a really heavy workload. So that's part of where I say it's just very individualized, and it would be helpful to have a one-off conversation to see if it made sense for you. So while we're talking about it, let me pull up the financials. And again, this would not impact you the first year that you're early entry. You're going to continue to still pay the same rates that you've paid at the undergrad level. That 5th year, when you've graduated with your bachelor's degree, you are, well, you've always been fully in the program, but I guess I would say you're no longer early entry. You are just a graduate student. Then you're going to be subjected to the graduate rates. And this makes up, this total number you see here is several different things. It is the base tuition amount that the graduate school charges for all grad students. Then there is a program fee on top of that. We call that the increment. Most graduate programs have a tuition increment. It is what funds the program. And those vary depending on the program. So if you're looking at the MBA program, that tuition is going to be different because their increment is different versus an MHA versus whatever. All of the graduate degrees have different increments. Plus all of the other fees you pay as a student, right? So that is all compiled into this one pretty chart here to show what the rates are you would pay based on your residency. So if you're an in-state versus an out-of-state student, and then based on the number of credit hours you take. So if you're taking 1 class or 2 classes or 3 classes. So if you're a full-time student in the graduate program, 9 or more hours, and you're an in-state resident, you're going to pay about $7,800 per semester, right? Versus, let's say you're going part-time, you're only going to take 2 classes at a time, so it's going to take you a little bit longer. You're going to pay this amount each semester. Does that make sense? Okay. Other questions? These are really good, what you guys have asked so far. Let me also say, I think it's helpful to hear from other students directly. I am happy to connect you all with peers, classmates of yours who are pursuing this, who have sat in some of these graduate level courses, and who can really speak to just the culture, the environment, what the classes are like, what the workload is like. I haven't really mentioned, I guess, the structure in general. All of our courses are at the Center City building, so they're in Uptown. Thankfully, the light rail makes that commute easy. With you all being on main campus, I think the easiest way would be to take the light rail. There is parking at Center City, and you can opt to drive if you have a parking pass. But they're primarily in the evening, so 5:30 to 8:15, which means they meet 1 day a week. So it's a longer stretch of time. You all are used to that with your studio classes. Most undergrads are not used to classes being that long, but I think you all have had that experience a little bit more. So it's just a different learning environment. I would say about 60% of folks in DSBA are part-time students, meaning they work full-time. It's probably flipped in health informatics. It's probably 40% that work full-time, 60% that are full-time students. Average age in both programs is about 30. So I would say, of course, we get folks like you all who are either fresh out of undergraduate or still in their undergraduate program, and we get people with 30 years of experience and everything in between. And so it truly is kind of in all walks of life, all different academic backgrounds, very interdisciplinary in that regard. There's no one path into the program that makes more sense or that students do better in. I always like to tell folks, no matter what you look like, and by that, of course, I don't mean physically, but what your background is, what your work experience is, it's very likely you'll find other students in the program that are similar. Other questions? I know it's Friday. We're all just hanging on for dear life.
Carly, are there any recommendations for how long they should be with like their stats or their math if you find that they do better if they're done with 3160 or if they just finish stats 2? Any recommendations with any of those other courses that maybe you would like to see them have done before they start the program?
Yeah, that's a great question. You all come in very prepared. So what we ask for on the graduate side is in terms of prerequisites, 1 semester of calculus, 1 semester of statistics, which is basically 1220. So if you've taken even stats 2, you're going to do fine. And certainly if you've had stats 3 by the time you come in with us, I would say you're going to be ahead of most folks. The other component of the prerequisites is an understanding or a familiarity of a programming language. You all are going to be fine there. We've had folks that come from majors that have never had exposure to that, and so they're doing like online tutorials to learn Python. I think it makes sense. This is a natural feeder in terms of major into ours, so you guys come in very prepared. If anything, I do notice that students feel like they need more programming, and they'll take those additional supplemental resources. The School of Data Science pays for you all to have access to Data Camp, which is a ton of online courses. So if you feel like you want to go above and beyond, you are certainly welcome to take some of those just for your own knowledge sake to come in prepared. But I see folks that come from the DTSE major come in well prepared.
And just so that people know, you have had transfer students that transferred to UNC Charlotte apply to the program before. Because that's
Yeah,
something I get a
absolutely.
lot.
It's a fast turnaround, right? So they might start at Charlotte as a transfer student in the fall, as a first semester junior, and then in the spring, they're already applying for the graduate program. It's certainly doable. It's just a much quicker pace. Oh, good question. How many classes should you have left before you apply? I would go back to the credit hour requirement. So you have to have 75 hours to submit your application. And in theory, you're taking 12 to 15 at that time. because you need 90 to enroll, which means you have senior standing, and then you can be early entry for 2 semesters. Let me also say that the graduate school has a policy where you have to enroll in a graduate course the term that you're admitted for. So let's say you apply now to be admitted in January, but you end up not taking any grad classes in January. They sort of take that as you're declining the offer, right? Like you're not pursuing the program. And so you would have to reapply the next semester. So it is really important that you're intentional about your timeline and you apply when you intend to start taking graduate courses, or else you'd have to go through the process again. I have had weird situations where students have studied abroad or maybe have to put a pause in their progression. Those are fine, but you do have to enroll the term you're admitted for. And then in terms of specific classes, I would recommend not taking that ITCS 3160 and 3162, pardon me, until you're admitted, because you want to take those at the graduate side. If you happen to take them already at the undergrad, you're just going to be extra prepared because you do have to take the grad version. So it doesn't count, you can't count the undergraduate version up. You can only count the graduate version backwards, if that makes sense. So I'd hate to see you all take classes that you're going to have to take again. That's the whole point of early entry, right? Is to be able to skip one on the undergrad side and just take it in the grad version. Yeah, I would typically recommend. So if you come in with 90 hours, you start the grad program with 90. That means you still need 30 hours to graduate, right? Which is 15 and 15. We'd have to take a look at what classes you need specifically, but very generally speaking, I would advise students in that scenario to take 2 graduate classes and 3 undergraduate. And you would do that for 2 semesters, right? So 2 grad each term gives you your 4 that you can double count, and then whatever else you need on the undergraduate side.
And I would also say, to kind of piggyback on the undergraduate side, we don't want to hear from your undergraduate classes, especially your Studio 4 or your
Right,
Studio 3
right.
classes, that, you can't participate in your group work as much as you hope to because you're in grad courses. So that's where Miss Mahidi was talking about, like, making sure that, it's a good pairing. We don't want to put you in an early entry program if you're not ready for that. And if you're not ready for that, that's okay. We still have master's programs that you could apply to after. But we do want to make sure, like, I heard I had a student come in and they were venting about their early entry partner. We don't want to have that happen. So I would say if you're going to do this, make sure that you're fully committed to being all in. Like Carly was mentioning, a lot of the classes are at night. And so if you also need to manage a job at night, it might not be the best fit.
And that's a good point too. This is one of many pathways into a graduate program, right? As I mentioned, I get folks that are 30 years into their career who come back to decide, I need to retool, I want to go a different direction. Or maybe they graduate with their bachelor's, get awesome jobs, like I know you all are going to, and work for a few years and then get your company to pay for you to come back. That's really common. And that's the whole point, right? Is to get you all a job. So if you have a great job offer, don't say no because you want to do the graduate program. Like we can always you can add us on later. You can come back at any time. You can take one class at a time, go at a pace that makes sense for you. I talked to a student yesterday who was interested in early entry. He's a business major. He only has 1 semester left and he has 1 course on the undergrad side to take. Um, so not to deter him, but there's really no value, right? Like, and he and I talked about maybe just finish strong and apply as regular admission in the fall. That kind of makes more sense in his scenario. So there's tons of different options. I do see a message here from a student. You have 87 credits, but you're a freshman. So you're telling me you came in with a ton of hours. This is your first time in college, but you have 87 hours. We should probably connect offline because in theory, yes, if you have 90 by spring, you could apply, but you would only want to do that if you have 2 semesters remaining. You don't want to do that if you're still here for another 2 or more years. So maybe let's connect individually. Perfect. Let me put my email in the chat too. You guys can find me all over the website. But if you ever want to just set up a time individually, or you have specific questions that you don't feel comfortable asking in front of the group, please just email me and we can get those questions answered. I don't want to just say go to the website. because that is annoying, but we do make an effort to make the website helpful. And so there is all the information, step-by-step process of what's required for the admissions, what that looks like specifically for early entry timelines, that we've got some great survey data of our alumni, where they're at now, what are they doing since they've completed the program, along with just a demographic of who is the average student in both of these programs, DSBA and Health Informatics. So it's worth taking some time to check around. And if that prompts any questions, of course, Ms. Earl and I are here to answer those.
One other plug, I know that she's not on this chat right now, but Paige is in her first year of early entry, not to call her out. So she is a great resource for you all that might have basic questions about, what does it feel like to go uptown and then have a class on campus and some of the logistical pieces of that. So if you're concerned about that, she's a great resource for you all to reach out to.
I can give you all several. Yeah, Paige is great. If any of you know Sonia, she started early entry, and now she's a graduate assistant. So she works with us in the department. She's doing some really cool projects. There are several. I'm happy to connect you all with students who have been where you are and who can really give you the scoop. Okay, well, I'm happy to give you a few minutes of your time back if